Hello, Tech Pros, episode 103.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week, we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started.
Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to be joining you on this podcast today to talk about a subject that I find personally struggling. I struggle with this subject off and on my entire life, my entire career. I still struggle with it today, but I've found some tips and tricks on how to overcome it, how to deal with it. And so I wanted to share that with you because I know there's a lot of folks in the audience that may be struggling with this too. And that is shyness and communication, introversion and communication. So why is this important to me? Well, let me tell you a little story. When I was a kid, I had very, very few friends because I was extremely shy, extremely introverted. As I started growing up, I got into high school. You know, all kids deal with, bullies and being picked on or, whatever, all the stuff that everybody deals with. And I was extremely susceptible to that. Not that I got picked on more than anybody else. It's just I felt picked on constantly, all the time. And I use this. I used those experiences as kind of just a really bad, it put me in a really bad place in my teenage years and my young adult years, and it continued on into my adult life. And so I had this fear constantly of being judged. So I want to go back to this difference between introversion and shyness because there's a huge difference, and I want to talk about these because it's very important. And then throughout this discussion today, I'll be giving you, if you're an introvert or if you're a shy person, I'll be giving you tips and tricks on how to relate to people and how to communicate to people more effectively, specifically being a shy person. Now, introvert and introverts, and I say this on the podcast quite a bit. I've brought it up several times that I'm an introvert. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're shy. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have a problem communicating with people or that you have a problem going out in public or that you have a problem making new friends or building your business or whatever. So let's talk about the differences. First, an introvert prefers quiet environments and calm settings, and they need that calmness, they need that quietness in order to recharge their internal batteries, right? So I am an introvert, which means that I like calm, peaceful settings, not big, loud, raging parties. I'm okay with parties, but that saps the life out of me. When it's really loud and boisterous and everybody's shouting over one another, that doesn't charge me up. That actually takes away from my internal energy supply that I have to invest into that setting. I have to really talk loud and really use my voice, or I have to really listen really, really hard to understand a person if they're engaging with me, or just being in a setting where everybody's laughing their loudest. That can be very fun, but it's also extremely draining to me. Whereas extroverts, a lot of extroverts, man, they thrive in those environments and they love those environments. As a matter of fact, they need those environments in order to recharge their batteries. So if an extrovert is in my perfect setting 24/7 for several days, that's not going to feel like a vacation to them. That's going to feel like just complete boredom. And they're going to need to get out of that setting in order to recharge. They're going to be like, we got to go out. We got to go to the bar. We got to go to the parties. We got to go to the nightlife. We got to be around other people. I don't care what it is, just not something quiet. It's got to be something thumping and bumping and exciting and chatter and commotion going on in order to recharge them. They need that external stimulation to recharge their batteries. We introverts need calm. We need quiet in order to recharge our batteries. And both sides, both individuals can totally be around the other and totally be very comfortable and very successful in short periods of time or moderate periods of time. But over the long haul, we're going to need those settings that really recharge us. Regardless of if we're introverts, we need quiet settings. If we're extroverts, we need more energetic settings in order to make us happy and to get us back to our level, whatever our level normal energy level is. Now, that is completely different from being a shy person. So, and it's a common misconception. I actually say it all the time. I say I'm introverted when really I'm talking about my shyness, and it's just very common. And so, if you hear it, really think about the context in which the person is saying it, and you don't have to correct them, to their face, but just, okay, understand that in one case, we're talking about introversion, extroversion in the cases I just talked about. In the other case, shyness, we're talking about fear. And that specifically is the fear of negative judgment. Now, like I said, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was just very, very susceptible to bullying or the fear of bullying. And that made me not want to be around other kids. As teenagers, we're constantly poking on each other, being cruel to each other, teasing each other, whether it's the clothes, it's the hairstyle, it's your friends you hang out with, it's the type of music you listen to. There's always something, right? And bullying is a really, really bad thing that we need to take care of. But there is also just the day-to-day, just being kids, and you're just kind of poking at each other and just kind of teasing each other and just kind of seeing where boundaries are. And as a kid, I really felt like it was all bullying. Like, as a shy kid, I felt like I got picked on more than other people felt like they got picked on. And I really internalized this. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it to my parents. Didn't talk about it to my friends. I just internalized this. And I thought, why, oh why, do I get picked on more than anybody else? Well, looking back as an adult, I don't think I did. I don't think, I wasn't locked into lockers. I don't have any horror stories that other kids have or had when they were growing up. I wasn't singled out, and I think that's the difference. I was not singled out as an individual that everybody or so many people picked on in certain areas. It was just, kids being kids, and they made fun of my boots. I wore cowboy boots all the time, my belt buckle, because I was from Texas and Oklahoma, and that was kind of a thing that I did back in that day. And, I could have laughed about it. I could have been like, yeah, dude, I'm a whatever, country boy, hillbilly. I could have joked about it, but instead I internalized it, and I thought, why are they picking on me? Well, they're picking on everybody. The same guy that's, saying stuff about my boots and my belt buckle, he's getting picked on by his buddy about, his spiky hair, and he's laughing about it, and he thinks it's hilarious. So I don't feel like I was judged or harshly picked on any more than any other kid does. But the problem is I internalized it, and I believed it, right? I believed that I was under this undue, unfair bullying tactics, but I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to take it. And so as I grew up, I became this very, very shy person, or I was already a shy person that continued being extremely shy. And I was just very, very afraid of negative judgment by other people, both from my family, from my friends, from strangers. And it put me in a position where, as a young adult, it was very difficult to develop new relationships. It was very difficult to go out on dates. It was very difficult to go into a new work setting and just be comfortable with talking to the other people there. So I was always the person who was kind of there, but not there. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. And that means my body was physically there, but like there was a shell around me. I was not approachable. I mean, people could come up to me, they could talk to me, but I could not have eye contact. I was, constantly looking down at my shoes or looking down at the table or staring off, left or right. but not looking people in the eye, not having conversations, just natural flowing conversations. I could reply yes or no or this or that, but not really go into any details, not really put any of my personality, any of my heart out there until I felt like this person was not judgmental. They were not after me, and they would not use something I said as an excuse to ridicule or as a way to tease me. And so it took sometimes years, in many cases years of being with an individual before I realized, okay, they're cool. They're not going to just pick on me to pick on me. We're okay. We're friends. Like, we've been here a long time. They've shared a lot about themselves. They've kind of put themselves out there. Now I can open up and slowly start opening up and be more comfortable around individuals. And I've always been jealous, to be honest with you, very, very jealous of people who didn't have this, what I call extroverts. And I learned over the course of my career, the course of my life, that it's not really about extroverts. It's just about people who are not afraid, that don't have this fear of negative judgment all the time hanging over their heads. People who weren't really, really shy. They're just normal people. You go about your business, you talk to people, you interact, and some people are great, some people are jerks, whatever. You just kind of deal with it. But not being able to interact in a public setting or even in a corporate setting, in a company setting. And that held me back in life. It held me back in relationships. It held me back in, in my career. It held me back in a lot of areas just because of this fear that I had, that I didn't want to talk to people because I was afraid that they were going to judge me. I thought they were going to think I was stupid, that I was an idiot, that I sometimes stutter, I stumble over my words. I have to edit the things that I say in my head. I'm much better on writing things down. I'm very cool with that because that means I can edit as I go and I don't have to worry about somebody judging me. I can send the email or send the mail when I'm ready to send it and not just have people judge me like as I'm thinking through things, right? So that's something I've always struggled with. And recently, and I say recently meaning over the last decade, I've really learned a lot, and I've had a lot of success. Slow steps, baby steps of coming out of my shell, being less shy. I'm still introverted. I'm still very introverted. I love quietness. I love calmness. I don't enjoy huge parties, lots of noise, screaming over each other, or crowded restaurants where everybody's laughing and joking, and I can't understand what the person across the table is saying for me. I still like calmness, so I'm still an introvert, but the shyness is starting to go away. It's been slowly going away over the last 10 years. And so here's some tips that I've used that have helped me kind of deal with this. I started learning about this from my wife when we were dating and as we got married, and also from a boss. And there is a boss, a leader that I had a long time ago that really coached me and helped me get into leadership myself, but also just watching him interact with people and talking to him about how he relates to people. I really learned a lot about communication. And so this individual's name was Patrick, and he was not an introvert. He's definitely an extrovert. He's definitely not a shy person, or at least never acted like a shy person. He was always the life of the party. He was the life of the meeting room. He was loud and just out there, and you knew what he was thinking. He was always whistling or singing a song as he's walking down the hallway, and he could relate to anyone in any setting. And he did this by talking about music. Now, I'm not a real music buff, so it's not my thing, right? So I couldn't adapt exactly what he was doing. But he could talk to anyone and say, what kind of music do you listen to? And they would say, oh, I listen to whatever, the latest pop song. And he'd say, oh, yeah, that's a great song, and go into it. Or what kind of music do you listen to? Well, I've always liked country and western. Oh, do you like so-and-so and so-and-so? Or classical, and he could name off several classical composers, just on and on and on. He was a music buff. He still is a music buff. And His whole communication method wrapped around the thing that he was very passionate about, which was music. And he used music as the key to tap into developing a personal relationship with any complete stranger that he met, simply because everybody listens to music. And if they don't, if there's an individual that says, no, I don't listen to music, he'd be like, wow, that's so interesting. I've never met a person like that before. Let's talk about it. Did you ever listen to music? What kind of music did you listen to in the past? Why do you hate it? What's going on in your head? Like, would you ever give something else a try? And he used that topic, the topic of music, to really build a connection with someone, even if he completely disagreed with what they said, even if the music that they said he didn't like, or even if the music that he liked they didn't like, right? He used that as a common bond to create relationships with people. And when I first saw it, I thought, man, that's awesome for him, but he's just that kind of guy. You know, Patrick is Patrick. He's that kind of guy that can build a relationship with anybody. He's got this music thing. I don't have anything like that. I'm an uber nerd, right? The things that I like is not common in general everyday society. I can't just go up to somebody on the street and say, so Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition just came out. What do you think about the Paladin class? Right? They're going to look at me like I've just grown a second head. I might have actually just grown a second head. The topics that I care about, the topics that I'm interested in are very niche. They're very kind of nerdy, extremely nerdy. And I've been uncomfortable with just putting those kinds of thoughts out there into the universe, because people who are not into them would be like, what are you talking about? And then I would take that, what are you talking about, as judgment, right? They're looking down on me. They're judging me. They don't understand me. Like, they think I'm a dork. They think I'm a loser. My life is no good. And it's not the case at all. It's just they literally had no idea what is Dungeons & Dragons, like what is 4th edition, what is a paladin. I literally have no idea what are the words that are coming out of your mouth. So I've learned how to use what Patrick was doing in the past, music, but figure out ways to relate to people and then to communicate to them. And there's a lot of different ways that we can relate. So let me give you some tips. Let me give you some things that I use to relate. So music is a big one. Like I said, I'm not a music buff, but that's very, very common for most people. Most people like some kind of music. I love soundtracks. I love movie scores. I could not tell you anybody who's on the radio right now. Literally, like, if a song comes on, I probably won't recognize it. If you name the name of some pop singer, unless they're like all over the news, I'm not gonna know about it. If I saw a picture of a musician, or this happens all the time, if a musician has a leading role or a cameo in a movie, like if they're in the next Avengers movie, I could tell you all about the Avengers, but I won't have a clue that, you know, so-and-so is some big pop star that everybody just fawns over, and she's on the soundtrack album. I have no idea. And I won't go out and buy the soundtrack album because she's singing on that album, right? I will buy the movie score edition of the soundtrack, which has no vocals whatsoever, because that's kind of like the calm, peaceful music. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, it's my stuff. So for most people, I can't relate to music, but we can relate to other things. So location is a big one that works very, very commonly. We all have a birthplace. Many of us travel across the world. And what I found is the more traveling I do, it actually allows me to be less shy, because the more places I've been to, the more places I can relate. So I was just in Chicago last week. It was the first time I've ever been in Chicago, Illinois. So now I can relate to people when they say, I'm from Chicago. I could say, oh, hey, I've only been there once, and I didn't really get to do a lot outside of, you know, the hotel area that I was. But it seemed very interesting. I wish that I would have gotten to go to the Taste of Chicago when I was there. Tell me about it. Have you been there? What is it like? What kind of food is there? Is it overrated? Is it awesome? Also, you know, the crime in Chicago, just kind of walking up and down the street. It was, you know, there were, people on the street that looked like, there was a lot more. There was a lot more homeless people, to be honest with you, and I'm not used to that. And what is it like being a person that lives in Chicago? Once I got home, my wife told me, "Oh, you got home just in time. There were 15 people that were murdered in Chicago, just like being shot on the street." And I was like, "Wow, was that anybody that I saw?" Right? Is that, I don't know. It's just, so talking about locations. Last year we went on a cruise. We went to England. We went to Spain. We went to Italy. Those locations I can now talk to people about, from either if they had their birthplace there, if that was their birthplace, or if they traveled there on vacation at one point, like I traveled there last year, or if they lived there at certain periods of time. Those locations that we have in common, once we've both been in a place together, then we automatically have something in common. And I heard a speaker last week at the conference that I was at saying, was anybody here born in Texas? And there was probably 4 of us that raised our hands. He goes, friend. We're all automatically friends. We're all automatically friends just because we've been born in Texas. This is how you can relate to people, right? Because we have this kind of state pride or whatever of being born in Texas. Texans always think, or the perception of Texans is that they think that they, there's just a lot of pride there. And so you can relate to people on locations like your birthplace, places that you travel, or even the current location, right? Hey, I am currently in Central Florida. Now, the people that I've talked to now, I'm realizing that you have to ask them, where are you from? Where are you from originally? Because most people in Central Florida are not from Central Florida. They're from other parts of the world, other parts of the United States, and they move here. And when I run into somebody, every now and then I run into somebody that says, Orlando. Really? Yeah, I was born here, raised here, went to school here. Oh, wow, that's so interesting. Tell me about it, because I've only met 3 people in Orlando that are actually from Orlando. So tell me about that. So those are a couple of great ways to have a spontaneous conversation with somebody about a topic where you don't have to feel like you're being judged. And in just a moment, I'll go over a couple of more topics, a couple more icebreakers and small talk ways that we shy people can use to start building relationships and start getting out of our skin and stop being so scared of being judged. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but first we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors.
This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Burdine. Siri and OK Google are fun for party tricks, but 97% of smartphone users don't like talking to their phones in public. It's kinda weird. When was the last time you were at the mall and heard someone say, "Siri, what's my wife's dress size?" Or, "Okay, Google, where did I park my car?" Some things are better left unspoken. Burdine remembers the things you care about and reminds you discreetly through text messages. Names, dates, places, ideas, to-do lists. Burdine never forgets and is always there to remind you. You don't need to install an app, just text Burdine a statement and she'll remember. Text her a question and she'll answer. Burdine is the only contact you have to have on your phone. Meet Burdine at Burdine.com. That's BURDENE.com. Or text Burdine to 480-418-1411. Outside the U.S., be sure to use the country code +1. So for non-U.S. residents, text +1 480-418-1411 with a message Burdine.
Okay, we're back. And before the break, we were talking about the difference between introversion and shyness. Introversion is that preference to environments that are very quiet and calm, and you need those settings if you're an introvert to recharge your battery, right? If you're in a party atmosphere, if you're in a busy restaurant atmosphere where there's a lot of people, a lot of talking, and it's taking your attention away left and right and front and center and back and forward, that it just kind of sucks the life out of you, sucks the energy out of you, and you need calm environments in order to recharge. That's completely different from being shy. And shy is that fear of negative judgment, that fear that, oh my gosh, people are looking at me. Oh my gosh, they're looking at me strange. They think I'm a weirdo. Now I'm going to look at my feet. I'm going to glance up. They're still looking at me. They definitely think I'm a weirdo. I can never do, and I get sick to my stomach, right? That's shyness, and it's borderline on social anxiety. Shyness is kind of that first step to lead into social anxiety. There's a great article I was just reading from, where is it? elementsbehavioralhealth.com. I'll link it up in the show notes here at hellotechpros.com/103. It's this difference between introverts, shy, socially anxious. What's the difference? It's got some great information here that I'll link up in the show notes. But we talked about, how shy people, they're so afraid. As a shy person myself, I've always been extremely afraid of people judging me because I don't know what to talk about. Because the things that I care about, the things that I'm passionate about, Dungeons and Dragons, podcasting, software development practices, are things that quote unquote normal people out in the real world have no idea what I'm talking about. And so I really have to find a niche of people, or I felt like years ago, or up until quite recently actually, that the only people I could relate to was a small niche of individuals. Or I could have, if you take like a Venn diagram, if you take like 3 circles and match them up together, I would have a circle of people that were in IT or in software development, a circle of people that were Star Wars fans, a circle of people that played role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, a circle of people that, I don't know, played soccer, and that was it, right? And really, to be friends, to be really good friends, it would have to be only the people that overlapped in each of those categories are the people that I could be friends with. And so I had this misconception that I had to get very, very specific, very, very niche on finding friends, finding people that I could relate to, because there's no way that I, as this weird person that has all these weird things that I care about, can relate to normal, everyday people in real life and strange things in areas that I don't care about. But I found out that that's not the truth. So, my buddy Patrick, my old supervisor, he related to people on music. We talked about that. We also talked about how you can relate to people on locations, like their birthplace, the places that you've traveled, where you're currently located. Another one is sports teams. Even if you're not a sports fanatic, sports is so common in small talk and icebreakers, right? Because it's like every bar, every restaurant that you go to, there's some kind of sports game up on the television. There's baseball, there's soccer, football, there's something going on. And if you know just 1% about the sport or about the topics, about the headlines, you can bring it up in casual conversation. Oh, you're from Oklahoma City? What do you think about Kevin Durant leaving? And then you're going to get a lot of tears or a lot of anger, right? You're going to bring that out of somebody, even if you don't know who Kevin Durant is, even if you don't know anything about basketball. You're not even sure what sport it is. You just seen on the headlines, Kevin Durant leaves Oklahoma City and going to San Francisco. Breaks my heart. Anyway, just bringing that up, you will get something out of somebody at the table. They're going to be very happy about it. They're going to be very sad about it. They're going to think he's a jerk. They're going to think he's a very savvy businessman. But you're going to start a conversation. And what that does is take the spotlight off of you. So as a shy person, what you're struggling with, what you're really worried about is these people are judging you. They're thinking about you. They're thinking about what a dork you are, what a nerd you are, what a idiot you are. You don't know anything about basketball. But if you just take the spotlight off of yourself, right? Take this ego out of your mind and think about the other person, okay? Think about the person on the other side of the table. So you can overcome your shyness with empathy. You can overcome your shyness with empathy by talking to them about the things that they care about. And you can tell exactly what things they care about because their eyes will light up, their voice inflection will get a lot more animated, and they'll really, really get into it. So if you mention something about music and no bites, and you mention something about sports, latest headlines in sports and no bites, that doesn't mean necessarily that they're judging you, that they're thinking, oh, this person's an idiot. I wish that they would leave me alone. I wish this person would go away. They may just be thinking, I don't know anything about music. I don't know anything about sports. That's not my gig. That's not my thing. That's not my jam. That doesn't mean that you have to give up. It certainly doesn't mean that they're thinking something negative about you and that you should think badly on yourself, or that this interaction reflects negatively on yourself. Bring something else up. Bring something like children or parents. If you're a parent and you can tell that this person has kids, or they may have kids, ask them if they have kids. And if they do, man, if you have kids, they have kids, you got something great in common. If you don't have kids and they don't have kids, you got something great in common. If that doesn't work out, another one is just parents, right? We all have parents. We all have, somewhere along our line, a mother and a father who built us. And those that individuality of what was our mother like, what was our father like, was our mother in our life, was our father in our life, or neither in our life, that's something that we can use as icebreakers, as small talk, to really open up and find out more about that person. And, an example of how to do that might be, so I was thinking the other day of this situation in my life where at the time when I was 10 years old, I really, really disagreed with what my mom and dad told me, right? They really came down on me hard in this area, and I resented it. I hated their judgment. I hated that interaction. I thought it was completely stupid. And I felt that way for a long time until now. And now I think maybe in that situation, I would have done the same thing. What do you think? What were your parents like? What were the things that you hated, that the decisions that they made that you hated as a kid? Do you have anything like that? You can always find something to relate to with somebody. The weather is a great one. I mean, it's so cliche, right? But it's so true. Just talking about the weather. Looks like it's going to rain today. Yep, I think it's going to hit pretty hard at about 3 o'clock. Well, do you think the weatherman's right about the tropical storm that's coming in next week? I think it'll blow off to the side. That conversation means absolutely nothing. All it's doing is building a foundation of trust where you can just have a conversation with someone. All right, building a foundation of relaxation and just communication. And sometimes it takes a lot of this small talk, this kind of BS of talking about things that you're not really fired up about. You're not a weather person, right? But you can relate to people on the weather. And that allows you to just practice, if nothing else, just practice your communication skills, practice stepping out of the shadow of the shyness. Stop thinking about people are judging you and are thinking bad thoughts about you. Stop thinking about yourself so much and start thinking about the other person. Maybe that other person is shy. Maybe they're afraid of being judged. Maybe you should go up to them and say, hey, how's it going? Like, do you know any good restaurants around here? Hey, how's it going? Like, where are you from? I noticed I noticed you're wearing a sports team jersey. What do you think about this person or that person? Just have a conversation and make it about them. Make them feel like the most honorable person in the world because you want to hear their story, because you want to hear about them and what's going on in their life. And if you can put the spotlight on the other individual and ask them really, really awesome questions, or even just completely crazy questions. But anyway, ask them questions to get them talking about themselves. Then that's, first of all, it's going to take the spotlight away from you and put it on them. So as a shy person, you're not going to feel like, oh, I'm being judged. The spotlight's on me. It's going to put the spotlight on them, and you can use this empathy to start building this relationship. But on the other hand, it's going to allow you to practice communication, to practice building relationships in an environment that you control. You are in control of this conversation, because if it's not going the way you want, you can be like, you know what? Looks like this is my train. I've got to go make a phone call or whatever, and you can casually tap out, hey, that's great information. Here's my business card. Let me know if you ever need anything. But you can politely bow out of that conversation, and you can do that because you initiated it. When you initiate the conversation, it's a lot easier to have control and to remove yourself from the conversation when you choose. When someone else comes up to you and they start talking, you feel obligated, right? You feel obligated to say something or do something. Otherwise, you kind of look like a jerk, and you don't want to look like a jerk, so you have to say something. But if you're uncomfortable, then what you say sometimes ends up being, 3 o'clock. A good burger place down there, right? You start mumbling, you start looking at your feet, you're uncomfortable about talking to this people. They have control of the situation because they approached you. And that can be very difficult for us shy people. So take control of the situation, initiate the conversation, make small talk about things that anybody could relate to: music, location, sports, iconic symbols from different locations, children, little kids, or having parents, weather, so many different, public transit, whatever is going on in your world, work. There's something that you can relate to with a stranger that you're looking at across the table, or on the same train as you, or wherever you're at right now, or wherever you're going tomorrow. When these situations come up, take control. Just say, hey, how's it going? What do you think about XYZ? And just ask them something and get their thoughts. And as they're talking, really, really be empathetic. Think about what they're saying. Thank them for their time. And now guess what? You've had a conversation. You've started to build a relationship with someone in a very, very small interaction. It could have been 10, 15 seconds. It could have been 5 minutes. A very small interaction, but you've practiced not being shy, which is very important. You've practiced starting a conversation with somebody that you haven't ever talked to before, and you've started building a relationship with an individual that may, over time, turn into, a great friendship. If you see somebody every week, right, every day you ride the same train to work, and you've maybe ridden the same train for 2 years and never spoken to each other, say, hey, what do you think about this train ride? What are you reading? What books do you read what emails are you sending? Who are you sending emails to? What podcasts are you listening to on this train? Just start that conversation and see what happens. And maybe they blow you off the first couple of days. Maybe they have a great conversation with you, but over time, it might lead into a great relationship, a great friendship with that individual. But over the long term, I promise you that it will add so much value to your life, because it's all about beating this fear. It's all about beating this fear of negative judgment and getting that cloud of negative judgment and that negativity off of you, and getting it on, the opportunities that are out there in life, business opportunities, relationship opportunities, friendship opportunities, just life opportunities that are out there that you're not taking advantage of because the shyness is just putting you in a bad spot where you're just worried, you're scared, and you don't want to talk to people. You don't want to have social interactions. That's going to limit you in a lot of ways. So if you can just practice these, just do a couple of them. If any of this stuff helps, let me know. If it doesn't help, let me know. I would love to talk to you about it. Or if you're not comfortable talking, I would love to text to you about it or email you about it. This is something that I've struggled with for, 40 years now. And I'm still struggling with it, but I've found some tips to help me get over it. If these tips work for you, if they don't work for you, let me know, please. Go to hellotechpros.com/103 for the show notes for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Bostic, Bostick, or at hellotechpros on Twitter. Of course, I'm on Facebook. I'm on... I don't know. I don't think I'm on very many social networks because I'm not a social network kind of guy. But I do email. You can email me, Chad at hellotechpros.com. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're fearing. Let me know the situations that you've been struggling with, because gosh, I can empathize. I really understand what you're going through. Don't be shy. I will not judge you. I will not think you're a loser. I will not think that you're an idiot. I will not think any bad thoughts about you. I will say, wow, this person is brave. They're so brave because they reached out to me and they started a conversation with me. But don't think you're starting a conversation. I'm starting the conversation. You can continue it if you choose. Hit me back, send me some feedback. And if you can't relate, if you're not a shy person, give me that feedback too. Say, hey, I don't even know what it feels like to be shy. I don't know what it feels like to have this fear of negative judgment. And I'd love to hear that too. I want to hear all sides. Guys, take care. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. It's a crazy world out there. And I just want everybody to be careful. Live life to its fullest. Build relationships with each other. Build relationships with strangers. It's the only way that we're going to make this world a better place is if we come to understand each other, we have communication with each other, and that means really sitting down and talking to people. Send me some feedback, hellotechpros.com/103, @ChadBostick, @hellotechpros, or chad@hellotechpros.com, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.
The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/103. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been People Friday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I discuss entrepreneurship. On Sunday, being unplugged. Monday, motivation. Tuesday, productivity. Wednesday, leadership. Thursday, technology. And then back again on Friday to talk people and communication. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.